Okay, so let's start. Definitely, there's a lot of intersection, almost as if, or as diverse as all your works are. It's it's overlapping each other. If we think of all your work in a spectrum, with notes on one end in customary practice, and the other end in contemporary art, and modern art sits somewhere in the middle, right? So let's see how we can do this in trying to figure out how we can find source materials online and and uh, and also like maybe figure out if there's a more systematic way that we can do this. So there's two things that maybe we need to cover. One is finding and locating, given the current situation does not permit us, most of us at least, well, all of us here, to leave our homes. Or archives are not open. So physical access to these sites are impossible at this current stage. So what do we do in this situation, and how do we figure out or map out this online space and what is available there, right? So that's one thing that we're going to try to figure out. And then the second thing, if we can have time, we'll touch on the evaluation sort of like process as well, just to keep everyone on the same page. And what else are we going to look at? Yeah, so hopefully, I guess, gaining this understanding of the challenges that we're all facing, let's see if we can also try to sort of incorporate some of these into figuring how to develop a guidebook for future students as well. That's one of my goals. But, based on personal experience, I always feel like trying to work with sources is not a natural thing for me, right? There's always this tension between being more interested in theory and concepts versus engagement with the source material when I do research. I don't know about you guys, but that's how I feel. Because I used to definitely be more animated by theories and concepts, and it's a process of trying to find the right balance for me now, because my sense is I do feel free to share what you think, but my sense is there are also two very different kind of like approach, and they're attentive to very different things with very different types of reward. Yeah. So for me, when you understand the theory, the change in perspective is very immediate, almost sudden, and something just clicks, right? Whereas with sources, then it's you go through a very tedious process. It's very gradual. It's systemic, and then it gradually sort of like dawns on you. What I'm suggesting here is that there are two different experiences. They're not necessarily that one. I'm not advocating one over the other. I feel strongly that in order to do a right, interesting sort of scholarly research, you need to strike the right balance and in mastering both of these approach. But I think over time, I also feel like, when engaging with source material, it's not something that we do naturally. It's not natural for most of us, right? And it's tricky to figure out how to get into it. So I like to know how you guys started, doing it. And last time, I still belong to a time where there was a library and we spent time in the library. But, given this day and age, wow, it's so different. Everything is online, or most of the stuff is online, or at least our first encounter with materials through the digital sphere. So I'm also sort of like trying to figure out what is the best way to help students to ease them into being comfortable with working with source materials. And what I mean by source material here is primarily historical, but I also, but it also probably encompasses any type of data, whether it's anthropological, whether it's an interview with someone, or any form of sort of either raw data, primary data, right, that you're going to use in your research. So and I know that in the university we don't focus very much on training students to, make sense of or how to gather source material, because we tend to focus more on bigger concepts, and I think also learning this skill is tiresome, like requires you to comb through archives, which takes much more longer time. So I'd like to get a sense of how you all began. At least how do you sort of like start at the very, very sort of like beginning? Do you already set up a system? Do you have a kind of like working methodology? And I'm talking in a very concrete sense, right? How do you comb through archives? Do you just normally go online and then search through, a repository and see what you can find, and then, drag the image or the file into a folder? Or do you already start developing a spreadsheet? What is your approach so far? Do you have one, or is it random? Just unmute yourself when you want to speak, or if you have questions.
Maybe I'll start since I'm at this stage.
Okay.
In the beginning, well, that is also, I guess, because I have practically close to zero knowledge about the Sulu archipelago. So my strategy at first is to just have a general view of a secondary source that has been cited many times as a historical source. It's maybe you know the not Sulu Zone, the other one. So that, and then
so what is the secondary source you're referring to? Sorry,
it's a book. Oh no! Oh, why does the names escape me right now? By Najib. Well, it's a secondary historical account of the Sulu archipelago by the author Najib something. So yeah, I just gained a sense of what, just a rubric of what has kind of happened, and just to get a sense of the historicity of the place, or the popular or the mainstream narrative of that region. And then once I got that, I find even when I search, right, I find that my initial searches were very general, and then once I got a kind of map of sorts in my mind, I find that my research got a lot more. My search keywords gets a lot more specific, and then from there I stumble upon like archives or museums that carry objects or private collection that has been digitized. And recently I found a conference on Mindanao as well, which also introduced me to different kinds of other source materials. So I think, yeah, my process is also very top down. It's general, and then funneling down to something more specific.
Okay. Can you maybe walk us through slightly what are, when you say general keywords, what are some of the keywords you started off with, and now how does it compare to something that is more refined?
Yeah, well, initially it's just Sulu history or archipelago. Yeah, now that you mention Sulu Sultanate. Actually it's Philippines first. History of Philippines, and then from there I realized the narrative is very Spanish colonial, Spanish centric, and then that's not a good way to go, and then narrow it down to Mindanao, Sulu region, Sulu archipelago, Spice Islands, and then from there I find pictures and maps, Dutch maps and Dutch maps, Portuguese maps, and Spanish maps. And then in those, in the repository of those maps and in articles that talks about these maps, then there are further sort of refinement, or they talk more specific about certain things, like for example, the Yakan culture, the weaving culture of the Yakan people, of course, the Moro warriors, and a little bit about the Sama Bajau people as well, the Bajau Laut people as well. And then from there, from the pictures that they show, they would point to certain archives or certain certain museums that held these objects. So yeah, it helped. I guess it's sort of like a rabbit hole, like you mentioned. I just follow the kind of clues that are available to me in any material that I find, in any article that I find.
Okay, great. And then at least this gives you more, leads you to something more concrete.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks for spelling out the process. So where did you first, what kind, you mentioned you start off with a general search. Is that using Google, or do you use like the university database?
Oh yeah, definitely Google. Google, and I think I went to, with Google though, it's a mixture of finding not only just the articles. Of course I would look for articles, but also, like, I found this Sulu Zone library. I tried to find more specific libraries that are available out there that would populate related articles and other sources, and even links to other issues that people are thinking about. So these materials sometimes do not appear in the Google search. So yeah, I find that when I search, I don't only search for articles, I also search for these, like meta searching for these other repositories that I could go to.
Do you have a systematic way that you go through what you come across?
Not really. Well, I will put it in folders, like, okay, this is images of maps, images of this is Chinese porcelain, this is, you know, trade routes, and then articles according to trade, according to anti-state or piracy rebellion. This is according to a general perspective type view of the region. So yeah, I think I don't have like an Excel sheet that details, probably according to maybe a proposal or like an outline of what I'm going to write, but it's more like just, okay, this belongs to this kind of thinking, this belongs to this line of thinking. Yeah, just more like that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Anyone wants to continue or follow up on that? Do you work in a similar way? Or are you know, adopting a different methodology?
I think because I'm also in the, well, I'm not beginning, I suppose, but I'm still at the proposal stage, right? So I think probably definitely not. I mean, like, I think Ali and Clarissa has, you know, I mean, as they said, they already have all their materials, right? But I think I'm the opposite of Sharon. I mean, like, Sharon was interested in the region. So like for me, before I started the course, I think when I was applying for the course, I saw the mat and I told myself, oh, I think I want to study on the mat. Okay, I want to write something about the mat, but I don't know what. So the object was my first love, right? The object was my first love. So then my search is like basically just on the mat, like just finding out anything that has been written linked to a Bajau mat, yeah, because some Bajaus, you know, they are known as Sama Bajau, Bajau di Laut. So I just use the word Bajau because they are termed differently in different articles.
Mhm.
Yeah, so from there, then when I read that, that's how I found out about Elan. That's how that's how I found out about their stateless, the fact that they're stateless because there are things written on them. And if it's on about the MAT, they are briefly mentioned in articles that are talking about the Bajau trade, so Bajau economic trade, and also told in their rituals. So there are several rituals that we mentioned the use of mat, like ritual offerings like buas kuning, dances and songs, folk dance and folk songs, and also some literature on folk tales of the Sama Bajau. And there's just one article I came across where they actually compare the mats between the Bajau Laut and the Bajau Darat.
Mm.
So there's not much. Also sex reproduction, because it talks about the birth, how they use the mat in birth as a ritual in the birth. Yeah, so that was my approach, like from the mat to go up, so for you, you look at the region and you're trying to pin down to a point, right? So this it was interesting, like, because but as I said,
how are you organizing the
so when I find, then so I try to write down the bigger topic, so like what I mentioned, right, like Elan, artists. So far it's just Elan when it comes to collaboration artists, stateless. So there are a few key topics, rituals, and these key topics are written by same people, like, like let's say the rituals is mostly a lot by Hanafi, Dr. Hanafi Hussain.
So do you create a
folder,
document or folder? Okay.
At the moment it's manual folder, but I saw like what Clarissa showed last time. Actually, I tried starting using the, what do you call it?
Zotero?
EndNote and whatnot, but Zotero I'm trying to install, but I can't. But it seems like it's so manual. The EndNote is so manual.
I know it's for that footnoting.
Oh really? Okay, so I thought it was a bit too time consuming. So I'm trying Zotero and can't seem to install it. Don't know why. So yeah, so I'm not yet trying to move to digital archive, still manual, but yeah, hopefully I would need to do that.
Yeah, Mendeley maybe.
Mendeley I've tried also, but I can't install, don't know why. Yeah, so I actually I'm aiming for Mendeley and Zotero, but
do you want to share more about Mendeley versus Zotero?
Me?
Clarissa.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she's got some suggestions. So maybe.
The only thing I noted about the difference between the two is that Zotero allows for plugin to other applications, whereas Mendeley, it's data, there's double encryption, so you can't attach it to other applications.
Okay. Do you use both or what?
I used to use Mendeley, but then because of that, that's why I moved to Zotero. Both can be plugged into Word, so in terms of writing, it's fine. Both, either works.
Okay, and Zotero has a cloud system where you can store your files as well online, or what?
Zotero has another folder where they make like another copy of your work, I think. Mendeley, you can just local links, so you wherever you save your work, it should work. But yeah, I think so.
Right. Okay. Right, and they have all the citational function, right?
So Zotero, you can search via ISBN or your DOI. I think Mendeley, you need to input it, but sometimes they can collect the information from their database. So I don't quite remember how Mendeley works in terms of storing the information.
Okay. Cool.
So just wondering, any of you using Catalina Mac?
What is that? Do you want to tell us?
No, that means, are you using Macintosh laptop or desktop?
Yes, I am.
Are you using the Catalina
what is
OS, the operating system?
The newest one.
The newest one, and the newest one is like
Mine is Big
don't
Sur.
don't upgrade.
Yours is what?
Big Sur. That's it.
Fixer?
Fixer?
Sir.
Can't be fixer. You go to your
Fixer.
Apple
No, it's
about this Mac.
Sorry.
Oh,
Big
Big Sur.
Sur.
Oh, Big Sur. Okay.
It's the one before this, no? 2 before or something.
Yeah, don't update, Simon. Like, like you upgrade and it's like, shit, your Adobe doesn't work. Your
Nothing works, huh?
Oh my god, it's like driving me nuts, and you can't go back. It's like then yeah.
That's why the best thing is to go manual. Okay, that's great. So yeah, you can explore Zotero and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, what were you saying just now? Okay, so you started from an object and you telescope outwards.
Yeah.
And you sort of build folders and put stuff in your folders, right? Okay, cool. And how do you go about it, Ellie? Or you since yours is also very focused on a single artist, a single painter. Are you also sort of like building and understanding, the context around this painter as methodically or as thematically, focused as Yusra is?
Currently, I also, for me, I search for the articles using JSTOR. And also, I also use Sharon's method, like searching for some keywords. Yeah, but I'm still trying to find if there is any archive on the batik, Malaysian batik site.
Okay. Okay. Let's start with your research questions. That's right. When you ask questions like, was he influenced by the batik trends of Kelantan, and was he primarily interested in what aspects of Kelantanese culture did he want to portray? What do you hope to find that?
I want to find more information about, because he was from Kelantan. I wanted to know that time when he lived in Kelantan, was there a lot of batik factories, and how did he learn to make the batik? And because he stayed in both Kelantan and he moved to Pahang. He moved to Pahang when he was 23. So was he influenced by Pahang as well? And did Pahang have any batik artists there? Yeah, so but I'm still trying to work more on the history of the Malaysian batik side.
Okay, what is your problem statement? How is it responding to your problem statement?
Because I wanted to know the development of batik in Malaysia.
What is the problem statement?
The problem statement is, the first problem statement is if he was influenced by any batik trends.
That's a question. What's your problem statement? Didn't you write something? Remember we worked on this, right?
Yeah.
So what was the problem statement that you came up with? Yeah.
My problem statement, sorry, I'm finding.
So have you, so like since you're working from a position where you actually have a very specific set of materials you actually want to find out more about, right? And this is Malaysian batik. When you what have you tried? What platforms have you tried to find these find out more about Malaysian batik so far? What search engines have you used?
I use JSTOR.
Okay.
Um,
And then of course JSTOR doesn't have a lot of stuff lah.
I search for keywords.
Yeah.
I try to find what other scholars have written about batik.
Okay. If other than JSTOR?
Other than JSTOR, I haven't tried any other engines.
Okay. So when you search for JSTOR, what turns up?
For JSTOR, oh sorry, I think I'll get back to that because
Sorry. Where you're working on the other one, is it? Sorry, Ali, what are you trying to find information on
yeah, I'm trying to find
your what?
on JSTOR.
Okay, okay. Okay, so we'll come back to you in a bit. So maybe Clarissa and Ali, you both have a bit like of a different methodology, and it's interview centered. And I think this will also help perhaps Yusra, who might be also using the interview as a method to obtain information and data. Do you guys want to share a bit about how you did your
I think
how
I
you collected the data lah.
I can kind of share first because I know Clarissa is going to be very clean. Mine is very, very messy, Yusra, so bear with me. So yeah, I like mind map. I think it helps to kind of like frame what I'm reading, or the background at least, and kind of map it out. Because I think with other apps, it does help to have a sort of annotated bibliography arranged in the text. But
can I suggest something? Do you think you can share with us the link? I mean, we won't be able to edit, right, the map. Just navigate around and look at it and understand how you put together this thing.
Can lah, because this is from our Creative Hub research mind map actually. The one that I have for my proposal is on my wall. So I can drop you a link. I think it's whimsical. It's not that it's free, but I think if you're free, you can only have 3 maps. You're limited to 3 maps, and then you have to sign on. But Clarissa would think that this is very old. But yeah, I think from here, I kind of can know where my sources are from, which stakeholder is speaking, and also think about parallels, if there are any, when I observe it from far. Yeah, and I think from there, this is one side of like laying out my background or the historical aspect of the research lah. Yeah, but zooming in, this is a rough transcription of my interviews. So the yellow ones are from Five Arts Center, from Community Engaged Arts, Arts Ed, sorry. The pink ones are from Five Arts Center, and then there are the, green ones, which is from Japan Foundation Kuala Lumpur. I think for those who does not know what I am researching on, I think Yusra and Ali, I repeated this to you guys last session. It's really about studying these 3 different sort of creative spaces and artists that is working during the COVID pandemic. My research is to find out and explore how they have adapted and what is their future plans, seeing that COVID is still continuing. And maybe from there, we can figure out a way to support them. Similarly to Clarissa, outside the funding sort of conversation. And then I think a lot of my research data relies on also very current sort of material, as opposed to the literature review, which is more historic. The data that I need for my fieldwork is coming out now also, because it is right after the program is closed. Each of the program would have to sort of reflect or come up with publication to kind of mark the ending of their process. So this is Community Engaged Arts from ArtsEd. Another one is this publication that came out recently about the Maywe exhibition by Japan Foundation Kuala Lumpur, which I participated in as an artist. And from this in itself, it just came out yesterday, so I still have to like look through it and kind of break it down, see whether there are certain testimonies or certain statements that may be relevant to my research question of how COVID pandemic has affected their practice. Yeah.
Okay, so walk us through the process. When you find a statement or something within, say, this document that answers, an aspect of that supports something that you want to, an answer that you want to bring to the research question, what do you do with it?
So, I mean, I would highlight it for sure. And then what I'll do is I'll copy paste straight onto my Word doc, which I'm working on. Sorry, this is what I did with my interview. I placed all my transcription into a sort of theme, which I derived from looking into closer.
We do that later. Focus on what you do with the thing first. Then we can go to the interview.
Oh, okay.
One thing at a time.
Right. So what I do is I would like scan it, and then I would go onto the document which I'm writing on. That's how messy I am actually. And then I would.
Sorry, which document? So you
this is like my own.
Okay, where do you put that the passage to?
So let me show you one. Yeah, I put straight onto the thesis paper.
Okay.
And kind of break it down, or rather put the sources here so I can refer to them back. This is like the roughest I've done. Yeah, pretty much.
Wait,
and then,
these are your literature review. Just now you said that there's the reflection.
Right.
Talking about that specific passage that you highlighted, where do you put it? Where do you bring it to? You said you were going to bring it to a document, but where?
Oh, I put it onto here. So this is one of the sources I've put it down from Community Engaged Arts website itself.
Okay.
Yeah. And from there, I will reiterate it and reword it, as you can see.
What is that one with all the color highlights?
Oh, these are also...
No, not this one, the previous document where you have all the color highlights.
This coding, is it?
This one.
Yeah. So
this is the interview or what?
This is from the interview, from my 2-hour interview. Okay. And I would sit down and listen to the interview and write down what I felt was an important point. I did not collect their, so if they were to, if narrative interviews, sometimes they would pick up on the silences or the Freudian slips, but I'm not looking for that as much as I'm looking for objective answers to their response. And then I will write them down. And then after that, I would rewrite in a short sentence. And then I would...
so the black one is your rewriting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
why do you feel like you need to rephrase what they say? I mean, I'm just thinking alongside you and trying to understand your process. Yeah. Why the rephrasing?
I think the rephrasing is for me to kind of find deeper patterns or keywords that might come out from the interview in itself, and also my analysis of it. Yeah.
So is it your annotation or is it a well, how do you characterize it? And I wonder if you can show us, like maybe pick a sentence and show us how you know, how do you do it specifically?
Right. So let's look in one. Which one I want to choose? Yeah, I'm a bit shy.
It's okay. I mean, it's just work in progress, so don't worry.
Yeah. So mediating stakeholders' concern via collection and respect of artists lah. Yeah.
So that's a very loaded sentence, right?
Very. And so I have to like kind of understand it on how I would understand it or write it down from my point of view, if I were to not quote. And then what I'll do is then I would actually, start to create themes. So as you can see, the theme is on top, but I did not start by putting the themes first. I start by laying things out which I felt similar.
What do you mean by the themes are on top?
So, or the key ideas.
Where? It's creative program intention.
Yeah.
So what is the key idea? What is the key idea?
So this for me is motivation lah, of why they would run the program. Yeah.
And how is that the key idea?
Or at least because I look at how much or where they tend to start from.
You have to be consistent in your terminology, otherwise we are lost.
Right.
So what is key idea and how does it relate to creative program intentions?
So the key idea, or rather the pattern, I think I'm trying to find from the interview. I tried to group them first based on what I discovered from each interview, and I began by laying out the keywords which I felt was similar via the coding I did at the site in this black sentence. And then from this
keywords. Yeah,
I find like similarities from this description.
Okay, so like you mean certain passages you would connect it to a column called artists as researchers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I put artists as researchers, what happened is that, let me go back to this slide. Hey, where are you? Yeah, tadi itu. Did I exit? Alamak. Right. And then I would put artist as researcher as role of artist, or at least what they thought of the role of artist is. Yeah. And ArtsEd has their own expression of.
So why is artist as researcher different from role of artist and include?
Because it disconnects the three ideas of how they thought of artist roles, and one of it is a researcher. That was one particular description. And when I paste it here, it becomes sort of similarity I see about artists having to research, having to be in the social act in itself, having to pay attention. Yeah.
And you put the original quote here.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is not necessarily what I wrote earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I have to say this is
what you wrote is to help you to organize it according to certain themes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then I would break it down. I would start by laying out the bottom half of this slide in itself, and from there I start to write up my sort of pattern or themes of how I would frame this idea. And then I have a second step where I have to revisit again the main collected themes and see whether it is sharp enough, whether it's too loose. And that process in itself I'm not finished with yet. It is still ongoing. Yeah. But the idea is that once I get these themes, then I can shape it into my chapter lah, of probably the 4th chapter where it's in discussion, and the 3rd chapter where I just show my sort of methodology and findings lah. Yeah.
Methodology and findings.
Macam I would narrate the process and how the program occur, and then on the 4th chapter I will discuss about the patterns lah, that is aligning or not aligning.
Okay. How does it respond to your research problem? Does it respond to your research problem?
Yeah, so I put my first slide as my research question and also research objective, and I would repeat myself my problem statement lah every
That's
time.
a problem statement.
My problem statement is not here; it's in my paper. Yeah. Alamak.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions from anyone so far? I mean, is it?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. This is very messy. Yeah.
Clarissa, you want to share yours? Do you have a different way of organizing your data?
That's great, Ali. I mean, it's not messy at all.
Yeah, no, it's great to always see how everyone does things and to
Yeah, but like to cook it, right? Continue, please.
No, you keep talking.
No, to
Too
cook the
complicated?
idea, once you put it down, to cook it more, to
Oh, that's Ali.
yeah, stop pressing, like purah your idea until it's like, okay, this is it. I think is still a process lah. Yeah, but I'm jumping in between shaping my literature background and also my data findings, as seeing whether that helps to align it more. Yeah.
I mean, there's a way to parah that they call the 5 whys, right?
Yeah.
You might have
Who, where, why, yeah.
no, not it's why. Yeah.
Why.
And that's like if you want to really sort of like squeeze every single piece out of and a bit of information that you find.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Clarissa, you can take the floor.
You can tell that Ali is a performer, right? I guess I just wanted to share how for our research, like even to go back beyond before we came up with the topics, because me and Ali are on our same research project, that we use Airtable and we use Alter AI to kind of, which is Alter AI is a well, you can tell artificial intelligence that kind of records all the interviews. So you just kind of feed the audio file and then you come up with like the transcript, which is usually correct.
But English lah.
Yeah.
What about other languages? Does it transcribe other languages?
I think there are several different options. So there's Alter AI, and then also there's the Microsoft one, which is on like Microsoft.
I mean, does Alter AI transcribe?
Alter AI, I don't think it transcribes other languages, but I think the Microsoft one may. You have to check again, but it might have to be very proper Malay,
right,
in that case.
Right.
So yeah, so it helps you transcribe all of this. So it's really useful to I don't think Ali's your process is necessarily messy, because when I look back at this database, then you can tell how messy it was. I was looking at art and cultural kind of collectives under this idea of the Creative Hub. So so what we would do is input each entry, like each Creative Hub by the name, and then we would input, like, for example, like people, and then like status, website, blah blah blah. This one isn't really complete. Just to kind of get a feel as to like which ones that we think that might be interesting to move forward to kind of build up our body or database of creative hubs. And so this is Airtable. This is a databasing app. You can organize the data in many ways. So right now we're organizing it by location. You can kind of order it by, by date. So,
Can
yeah.
I ask a question? What format does Airtable save the data in? I suppose it's exportable, right? But
It's exportable.
what is, for example, the advantage of using Air data over, say, Google Sheet?
I think it's a lot more intuitive in terms of like organizing data. You can connect between, like, for example, you can connect between different sheets. Of course, you can do that in Excel, or Google Sheets, but you have to add more codes in between. So for example, here we connected the people, and then from connecting the people, you can connect back to this database over here, which is Hub's people. And then you can put applications into it to kind of create different sort of maps between the two, but I haven't explored that more. What did I do? Oh, okay. Maybe that wasn't particularly useful, but there's some other applications that you can attach.
So you can connect with people, as in you can connect to other tabs.
Correct.
Information in other tabs. Okay.
Correct. You can also make forms so that people can that can directly link into this database. So yeah, you can also import from Excel or Google Sheets if you want.
Okay, so it exports as CSV as well.
Which works in Excel and Google Sheets.
But what? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Yusra has a question.
What's the difference between this and, let's say, Excel? I mean, like,
It's a lot more intuitive. Like,
you make those connections easier. When you say intuitive,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
So you can order the data by groups, like this. For example, I'm ordering it by state right now.
You can do that for Google Sheet as well, right? I mean,
Technically, yes, but then Google Sheets is a lot more.
not direct lah.
It's not direct. You have to write a kind of MS-DOS code or something like that. You can connect between the different files. So for example, here I can attach two data to kind of indicate that Mocha Mocha Inc. is people involved over here. And you can like change it in different ways. You can export it. You can share certain views. So yeah.
Claire, is it useful if we could share like our Hub's profile, maybe, to kind of show how we get there?
Yeah, so from that, this was our first one. And then we got into the website. So we were developing this data for a website. And then, so we can organize even like text as well. So we were building up this database where we kind of write like the background, area focused, things like that.
Why did you need to create a separate table for the Hub's database? Is it really to extract and organize the data differently?
Yeah, so from
more narrative centered versus spreadsheet driven?
Exactly. So this is a lot more narrative centered. And also we can attach, for example, we have a bunch of different, we started to develop like the categories. So after like looking at this data, we kind of see which kind of people that we would like to talk to and speak to. And then, yeah, we came to this, I think. Was there something in between, Ali? I don't remember anymore. It's been like a year.
No, I think
was it from there to there?
The way we wrote about these hubs for our website also was based upon what we read in Creative Hubs in Question book that came out, compilation of studies on creative hubs, right? And sort of frame ways to describe them and translate it to public, actually, as opposed to another academic journal.
Right.
Yeah.
But we were also kind of collecting this to identify which might have been a creative hub. So like the ones ticked are the ones that we are kind of looking into more. And which one isn't, because we weren't really sure until we kind of spoke to them more in depth. And then, yeah, when we were interviewing, we kind of interviewed based on these 4 areas, like what's the background, your area of focus, achievements, and then like programming. And of course, like if the conversation goes into different kind of trajectories, then it will. and then it's a matter of like kind of compiling what happens here and then putting it over here. And yeah. So I guess I wanted to share that.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Good. No. That's wonderful. That's one other way to sort of like organize your day. Who do you have any? So you have worked on a book anthology of Tang Chang's writing. I know that's already been published. I mean, building on that, how are you approaching your research today?
Okay, after I see the process of Ari and Tralisa, I think I admit that I have a lack of systematic organization in my process. Many times I already think about it in my head. But however, in the city introduced Mendeley to me, and I found that it have a potential to manage many data. But I haven't spent many time with it. Moreover, I think annotated bibliography have potential to be a tool of management. For my work, there are two important elements. One, I need to survey about the discourse of Thai modern art. So I like to survey it from survey book, from anthology, or the book by some notable scholars that I know in this field. But you need some experience to identify some seminal works in your field. So many secondary sources can help you. I need to focus on some primary source. I found that I can trace to primary source from many secondary writing that will mention and give some keyword about that. However, for my process, I like to start by seeing a bird eye view in that topic and start with many secondary writing. However, I found that Wikipedia and anthology have some useful data to trace to many data. Wikipedia, I think, is one source that is useful to find. If you find a good chapter in that, okay, you don't need to be accurate of it. You don't need to believe everything, but some writing may have reference of note that you can follow it. Moreover, some writing in Wikipedia give you some good keyword, such as name of prominent people in this field, or mention some name of book. You can trace from that and may map some Rusmin network of data in your head. From anthology, I think it is a very best source for me to start acquiring some topic. It has been curated and identify some prominent work. After that, it's not hard to follow from bibliography. However, I think it should be careful you not to be dominated by the way that editor evaluate or interpret it. After you see the bird eye view, I think you can go deeper by search on database, such as university database, JSTOR, etc. But I found Google is useful to find some paper and I use it to try to access the university database. If it cannot access, the last solution is email to the writer. Sometimes I like to find the data from specific source, such as some journal that I know, some specific journals, such as Southeast of Now is the specific journal focused on Southeast Asian art. Okay, you may find some active scholar in the field and can trace back to the past work of them. However, I admit that I have a lack of systematic organization. I should improve that.
Okay. When you say, so you're primarily looking for secondary sources. What about primary sources?
I think I can find a way to go to primary sources from secondary. It can it will evaluate and identify that what is the important primary work
So
But,
what have you found?
such as in the work of Simpiracy, some secondary source identify some writing of him, such as contemporary art in Thailand or art or nude.
Okay, so where is the primary source? How do you find the primary source?
I think in my work, primary sources, many primary sources need to go to access via physical.
Okay, have you tried online? Okay, have you used the National Library of Thailand?
Yeah, I have tried, but Thai National Library is is very
What about the archive then?
yes, for some database in Singapore University, but cannot access to all.
No,
Only
Thai National Archive.
National Archive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you used it?
National Archive. No, I haven't spent many time with it. I should come back to find it.
Okay, so you can't find material. They don't share digitized files on the National Library's website. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in fact, Thai National Archive have digitized rest of data. Many of them are still in the paper, still in physical media.
Yes, I know, but what has been, so there's a difference between complaining that things are not digitized versus finding things that are already digitized, right? So
Yeah,
what has been digitized?
So now I haven't searched in National Archive.
Okay. Have you searched in the National Library?
Yes.
And nothing.
I found some PDF about the writing of Simpiracy, but it's not many.
So what have you found? Be specific.
The writing of him that published by Fine Art Department in around 1960 or 1920s, only two or three pieces.
Okay, right. And how many more do you think that's out there? You have an idea?
I need to revisit it before.
Sorry, you need to revisit.
Yeah, before.
So okay, even if you cannot go to the library now, you should have if Simpiracy is your main, artist that you want to study, wouldn't you know that he has at least written maybe approximately 10 articles or 10 books or
Yeah.
What is the number? Like, do you have an idea?
Yes, around
Like
for the book is under 10.
What give us an idea of his writings that you think is so important?
I think under 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Under the 10. But there are some small writing out there that I haven't found.
Okay, what when you say small writing, what do you mean? Can you be a bit more specific so that
such as the writing in art student art catalog, I think that there are many of them that I haven't find now.
What gives you the idea that they might exist? Have you come across them?
Yeah.
So you have some.
Now not, because I think I need to go to access your physical.
But how do you know that they exist? Have you've gone to the library and seen them before, is it?
I know from some secondary writing that are mentioned to them.
Right. Okay. All right, cool. Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know when the pandemic is going to end. So what we can do now is, at least, even if we can't access these sources, is to start mapping out what is the extent of the materials out there. So when it opens up, then you can go and access it, right? You don't have to do the mapping then.
Okay.
Right. But that's, I think, maybe what could be helpful for you at this point in time. I don't know.
Okay.
Right. So maybe let's go back to Ellie.
Okay, thank you. For when I search for Batik Malaysia as keyword in JSTOR, the articles that pop out are articles about Indonesia, Malaysia, shared cultural heritage, also about cultural heritage and question of identity in the batik designs of Java, and also climatic changes in household food availability in Malaysian East Coast economic region. So my question is, like, how do I pick which one is going to be relevant to my essay?
Which
Also,
one?
since yeah,
Does it answer your research problem?
Okay, my research problem, my statement of problem is was actually because he's known for depicting the people of the East Coast. So I wanted to, and also there has not been recent studies of his composition using the batik medium.
So there's no recent studies, but what has studies in the past emphasized on that you think is not sufficient enough for you?
Okay, I wanted to know more deeply into the Kelantanese culture, and what kind of heritage, like, could it be elaborated more?
What do you mean? What kind of heritage? You mean what is Kelantanese heritage?
Yeah. What was the environment? What was the Kelantanese heritage and environment that he was trying to portray during that time?
Okay. How do you plan to go about that? What should you look at?
Maybe because I was also trying to find out more about East Coast during the 1950s and the 1960s. So I'm trying to look at the East Coast period, and also if there was any batik factories set up during that period.
Okay. Anyone wants to maybe suggest how you would go about this? Because I think it's related to textile. I mean, yeah, weaving is not key. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's looking at customary practices. So I wonder if Yusra, you want to suggest how she could, approach this topic?
I don't know. I mean, if if I'm interested in how the Kelantanese culture, his Kelantanese culture is influencing his hard work, is it? In
Yeah.
some ways, yeah. Then you need to know what do you mean by Kelantanese culture? You know, I think then, I mean, how do you answer if you don't know what is Kelantanese culture, right? Yeah, so perhaps that is another topic to look into. So it's not just the batik, in order to inform how the two, how his work is related to his questioning of identity or questioning of his culture. I think you want to, I don't know, from my understanding, you want to know whether through his work, does he question or not his cultural background or cultural identity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't know. Are you from the East
That's very
Coast?
helpful.
Are you from the East Coast? No,
No.
you're not. Okay.
But does that make sense? Like, is that not what you're thinking of? Or do you have a different idea?
Yeah, what Yusra suggested was very helpful. Yeah, because I also wanted to find out what was he trying to portray his own cultural identity during the period.
So how do you find out about that?
Yeah, how do you know that it's
I mean,
actually
okay.
Kelantanese identity and not Perak or not Malaysia?
Of your research question, you have to think of whether it's
Yeah.
feasible or not. How are you going to find out that?
Yeah, maybe I can ask. I can ask his family to have more information about the background.
How do you know the family knows? And the family can say anything, but it's not coming from him. I mean, my kid might, say something about me that, you just imagine yourself, put yourself in the shoe of your family. Do you know everything about your father? No. Does your dad know everything about you? No. So is that the most reliable source? Definitely not. It's one source that can corroborate other sources, but I wouldn't rely that exclusively. I wouldn't rely on that exclusively to figure out, right? So if that's not so reliable, how else? Right? Maybe this is something you need to think about. I mean, there are two things that one is, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What about visual analysis, right, of his work, right?
Yeah.
In relation to Kelantan identity, Kelantanese, identity. I don't know, but you must know what Kelantanese identity first, right?
Yeah, because currently the books about him, right? They only mention that he is trying to portray East Coast culture and Kelantanese identity, but they didn't elaborate further. They haven't elaborated further yet. So I'm trying to find out more about this part.
So let me say, you work in an auction house. You come across, you go on to HB Art Auction website, and every single catalog will have a few Khalil Ibrahims. From that data, if you extract it out, and it's easily extractable because you can download the image, you can have the information, all that, create a table. Just by comparing them, wouldn't you have an idea already?
Okay, I will try. Yeah, I will try that.
Right. I don't know. I mean, this is my assumption that this should be a preliminary research that you would be already doing now, rather than something you wait until the end, because then you can ask more concrete kind of research question. And I think, you know, earlier on when Yusra was sort of like, you know, demonstrating how she was able to clarify her research question, it's really through this process of already making sure that you don't ask the basic question. You've answered those basic questions already before you then you can move on and ask more complex and more interesting questions, right? I don't know if that's a very non-transparent process. I don't know if that process is easy enough to understand for those of you who have not done it. Maybe you want to share your thoughts, and then perhaps Yusra can explain further.
And I'm just wondering, like in terms of archive, Kraft Tangan, do they have archive?
So a good place to also look at is university repositories, right? All the universities are under government mandate in Malaysia and Indonesia and a lot of parts of the world to share their thesis, and they are not going to appear on JSTOR. So for example, something like batik. So like, I mean, this one, unfortunately, with source material, we really cannot just rely on search engines, right? From articles, it might lead you to specific, you know, sources, and some of the sources are really nested in different repositories, and you have to spend time combing through all these repositories. So UM has, I think, what is called, oh yeah, this is, so that like 3 repositories at UM. So one of them is the student repository, and there's the common repository where they store archival material, and then there's the research repository, which is for all the researcher. But the student repository has all the old theses, and these are not searchable on Google. They don't appear on Google, but just type in batik. Do change to oldest first. What do you find? You know, like stuff like wayang kulit, tourism, batik. I thought there's a batik stuff. Yeah. Quite a number of batik articles. Like, no batik article. So, but essentially, you should be able to sort of find oh, yeah, I need to do this. So you can either browse by subjects too, and where is it? Browse by year. So see, I also don't know where is it. Sometimes you really have to spend some time trying to. Okay, so let's see. I go through every single one of them. And then sometimes I do this, I cheat. If it's a big sort of like archive, then I do every single one of them to figure out what's in there. And you should be able to sort of like find batik somewhere in here. There is there's one on batik Kelantan, for example. Aplikasi kajian yeah, commercialization of okay, you know, none of that. Kegiatan economy. I don't know where is it now, but there are, so like all these about you know, rural economy, they'll probably have stuff on batik. That's the word batik would have been mentioned in there. So you have to go through the document to see if it's related to your research. You know, probably this one on Kampung Cina will probably have information on batik too. So it might not be directly related to the topic, but you have to read around it lah, and the search then will produce at least articles that have mentioned batik, and then you got to figure out that's it. Perusahaan batik di Kelantan, Masalah, dan Prospek. So all these things are there, but you have to really comb through it to find out, where they are located. UKM has an archive. You think of all the older universities, UKM, USM, UM. So all the archives of older articles, not extensively, but a lot of them are shared online already. So you have to, and these searches won't appear on, won't appear on Google. But one way to sort of yield more results on Google that you probably know is that you would, I don't know if you would put PDF at the end or something. I normally like either do this or this, and then chances are even some of these stuff will come out. The student repository stuff will come out.
Or you can try all the database in UM.
Yeah, you just try every single one.
Yeah.
Do not stop at JSTOR, because JSTOR will have this kind of stuff. It's not really related. Maybe the only one that's related is batik and pewter. And I already sense this is probably related to your topic because it talks about national symbol. And it would have touched on the period that you are, or thinking about batik symbolism through a national lens. And that's how you maybe evaluate or assess the suitability of how much you want to, spend on, engaging with the article. Something like, where is it? Another one on batik. So something like questions of identity in batik and the designs of Java, maybe it's worth thinking about, but this will be secondary, right? You can already know by doing the evaluative work, that's what I'm suggesting. And pemetaan budaya, so websites like this. Let's have a look at what pemetaan budaya is. So why do you think this is helpful, Anli? Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Oh no, because I think it's also about figuring out, other than universities, also cultural institutions, because it's quite a clear thing, especially with JKKN, because they do map out and have context of traditional practitioners, particularly. Yeah.
So have you so I'm looking at the database now, but what do they have in there that you think would be helpful?
So they would have the kind of crafts that you want to find out, and from the crafts they can have the practitioners context, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
The Adi Guru lah, you mean?
Yeah, the Adi Guru.
Yeah, the Adi Guru. The Adi Guru is also on the Kraftangan.
And also they have a sort of analysis of what, or at least their definition of what the craft is. So it is a sort of national lens for you to friction your definition of your research or the craft that you're researching. Does that make sense? I mean, JKKN is just one institution, and I think Simon has showed also like UM and everything. So it's really up to you to sort of map out these different people saying the same thing or trying to describe that thing, and whose description is used the most and why. What is the incentive from there, and what happens when you look into this artist's work and his work's depiction of what Kelantan means versus what Kelantan means to, I guess, the national, the cultural, and also the personal. Yeah. I think it's really like just swim through this. I think it's quite easy to find, and because it's Kraftangan or traditional arts is there's a lot of stuff out there. Actually, even in the economy, it's one of the main thing that is looked at to be marketed. So, but it's not popular like, say, the film industry or the music industry. It's quite a hidden gem, really. Yeah. So I think it's easy for you for like a week boleh kot banyak dapat jumpa.
To add to that, I feel like Ali, I think you're right in saying that definitely you have to look at all these government agencies, but I wonder, I do wonder if like their websites are the way to go, only because they tend to provide information that are too general. They don't actually sort of like give you the kind of like deep data that you need for your research. So where do you go for this data? For most government agencies, every 5 years, I think, all the data has to go to, the old data has to go to the National Archive. So you need to find things in the National Archive, and you can use their online finding aid. I don't know if you really have to sort of like learn how to use this, at least to map out what they have first. So there's like stuff that has already been digitized. And then there's stuff that is not digitized, but at least it's listed. Then they have a separate database that you can only search when you're there. So that like 3 levels of access, it's really weird. But you just have to work with the system, right? You can complain that, you know, it's cumbersome, but okay, we know that we can't access the on-site database for now. So we leave out of that, but we can access the online finding aid. And online finding aid, there are 2 sections to it. You sign up, very easy to sign up. And there is a keyword search that gives you an idea of stuff that's already been inventorized, but not accessible. So you have to sort of create at least your own sort of like wish list lah. And if you do your sign in and everything, you can even, so like for example, let's just sign in my, okay, let's say, see, this is the amount of records that they have on Batik. Yeah, and this is the kata kunci, yeah, so you won't be able to access all of these material. I don't want images, I don't like images. Okay, let's look at documents. So let's say there's a 1960, okay, so cukai, kain-kain, sarung, batik, and dicap dan ditenun. Okay, it's not accessible here, but it gives you an idea. And what you can do is you save it in your wish list. Okay, and it should appear somewhere here, Tempahan or Senarai yang diminat and everything. Then they have the digital section, right? The buttons is a bit weird, so you have to always click reset. You just have to figure out these things. No point complaining about it. And then you key in and then see what they have already digitized. Right? Generally, you won't find a lot of digitized stuff, but at least what happens is, but then you also have stuff about, like the batik painting sponsored by Sarawak Artists Association and all this stuff. These are information that you want in your thesis, right? To get a better sense of what batik painting is as a kind of like cultural movement. Already you have some access here, and just mapping the online materials. You could at least sort of like, even if it's not sort of like comprehensive, it will cover, you'll take up a month. And then alongside this, you're trying to figure out what are the materials in the main archive that you can find through this portal. And then you can sort of like create a list already. If not in the sort of like, if you don't sort of like annotate it here, you write it down, write it down in your own document or copy it to your own document, make a note, and then you can bring it to the archive and find it there and make requests to view those documents. And then when you go to the archive, there's then another database there. So there's all these sort of like databases that you can already start figuring out where things are rather than wait until last minute, because feel like if you don't start doing this, you will continue to always grapple with what is the correct research question and what's the thing that you want to answer. Once you get all these sort of like basic questions answered already, I think you'll be in a much more confident place. That it'll be easier for you to figure out what your research direction is. Everything is in paper. That's not true in Thailand. There's a lot of stuff that is online, right? In the National Archive, they digitize a lot of materials. A lot of photographs are digitized. I mean, the Royal Collection, have you gone and looked through the Royal Collection? Maybe it's worth exploring. I mean, given that a lot of the Bajirawut materials or photographs would be part of the Royal Collection, and that what's his name? Simpirasi came during Bajirawut's period, right? In 1923. So there might be a chance that some of these are captured in the photographs in the collection, or the aspects of the collection, photograph collection. Yes, there's only a few, but start drawing them out and start mapping them. Otherwise, we won't know what is there. Okay.
Work with what is available, I think.
So what is available then?
Yeah,
List them down. Don't keep telling me that things are not available that you can access. When it's not available, map out where it's not available. I think rather than waiting until things open before you figure out what is available, what is not available, we can do it now rather than wait until later, right? Otherwise, I think you won't know what is your research direction. It will be still vague.
Ellie just now, the craft tangan. I don't know whether you can try and ask craft tangan has a craft tangan school, right, in Rawang. Okay, in Rawang is the National School for Craft. They have a library. I've passed it before. I know the existence of that library, but I didn't go through it. I don't know what's there though. Even the library at the Jalan Konle has some books, all right, small one. But you never know until you go and look whether they have something. But they are generally books. They're not research. I mean, they're not like, I think what it might be a start. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great idea. So are they digitized?
No,
okay.
Physical library. Yeah, I've been to them actually, but they're physical. Yeah.
Okay. But honestly, I feel like your best database is really the auction house that you're working in. You have all the data there. You need to start working with whatever that you have, closest to you, because I don't imagine every single bit of information is shared with the public on the website, right?
Most of it is on the website.
Yeah. Okay. When you say most of it, then what is not?
I think most of it, the writings.
Okay. So show what you can do with those materials. The other thing is you go through the newspaper archive, the Singapore newspaper archive. Do your search, batik painting, just so many articles on batik painting. I mean, granted, some of them are not locked and you can only view on the spot. What happens with this is you probably have to figure out if you have Singapore colleagues or friends, ask them to go down to the National Library, write down, give them the exact link, ask them to go and like save it or print it for you. Right? Easily, this one will take up a few months to do. Then there is what is it? Digital gems as well. So I don't know if you read Chinese. If you do, then look at all the Chinese articles. Look at through the Chinese. There's so many stuff in Chinese. It's not funny. There's so much material. I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, that's your, if you are finding difficulty trying to figure out an angle to this, then there's this whole pool of untapped sources that, you know, Shireen will not be able to read, but now you have the capacity to read the language. So that's going to be your advantage. And that's an area that you might have actually something to contribute to if you actually work with those sources.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and don't forget the National Gallery website, right? Singapore. Oh, the website is down now for some reason. They have the archive there, and they've been sharing a lot of archiving material. So you should probably also check out their repository. So I think there's a lot to sort of like, you know, explore, and once you're able to sort of like go through these things, you would, you know, it's going to take up a lot of your time already, just finding the materials that are online. Okay, so maybe the last thing to add to this is, Clarissa and Ali, do you have you, over the course of the pandemic, tried to do interviews online?
I think most of our interviews are online.
Oh yeah? Okay.
I did my interview online.
Great.
Yeah.
Can you share with us your process? How do you approach people? How do you get them, especially during the transition period, how do you get them comfortable with the idea of using, you know, communicating through Zoom, or like, you know, when it used to be people are more comfortable meeting up? Or was it because of the pandemic that everyone just naturally was okay with?
Wasn't
That for
bad.
my case, that's it, exactly it.
Yeah.
But also I had privilege to work with them, so they were already working online of sorts. And I think it's just about really inviting and wanting to talk, because I think it's also extra easier because it's COVID-19, because they're free technically. They have more time at home. It's kind of easy to kind of, yeah, just be nice.
Right, right. How did you approach, and how do you store your data or annotate it? Or
Be professional. Send an email. Yeah, send an email, send a calendar invite, and have clear questions. Like we Ali and who's not here, when we were doing our first initial round of interviews, we had very clear list of questions.
What would you consider as clear versus an unclear question?
So it's a very, so we have, wait, where are our questions? It's been a long time.
Just type down interview questions at Hub School. So I think what happened was that we had a moment, I think a full day sitting down together to craft questions to gain the data we wanted. And then from there, we categorized the arc, or we looked at the arc, and then always think it's like also bringing them through a story, right? There's a beginning, middle, and a concluding moment rather than concluding idea.
What do you mean by concluding?
So we
had key terms. So it's like, for we have key kind of areas. So kind of like defining terminologies. And then we also identified what kind of person in relationship to the kind of collective that they are. So what role did they play? And then after identifying which role they play, for example, most of the time we're talking to managers or people who are running these spaces or collectives.
So you make those terminologies consistent as well.
Correct.
That's a very important part of like how you process that.
Yeah. And then after that, then we have an introduction, like thinking about collaboration and exchange. And then thinking about sustainability, not in terms of ecological sustainability, but kind of monetary and financial sustainability. Achievements, like what did they think were their achievements? Because it's not necessarily like the same throughout. And then like policies and ethics. So that's like the arc. And then within each of them, we don't ask so specifically because sometimes they may not have that data. So if they don't have that data, how do we kind of talk around it? Then maybe we'll ask like, what kind of people are kind of participating in their programs?
Yeah.
So it's not about collecting the right amount of information every single time. That's not our work. We're doing qualitative work. It's about kind of seeing where they position themselves within this larger narrative of kind of collective work is.
So would you say this is the advantage of an interview over, say, doing, fielding a survey questionnaire, especially in obtaining this type of like hard data, right? And concrete sort of like data that you have some room for maneuver in terms of what you hope to draw from your interview subjects. I mean, easily, for example, like if you were to ask, identify your role, or these, you could also just give it out as a questionnaire. But what do you think are the advantage of doing it as an interview?
I think it's also about like presenting our where we are coming from as researchers, and when you meet face to face, you allow for this question to be thought as a discussion site as opposed to a definitive answer. When you give a survey, it's as though like that's a concluding idea.
You've already predetermining.
Yeah, you predetermine your definition. You predetermine that Creative Hub is already a thing. It was also us trying to figure out whether Creative Hub is familiar concept or not to this particular community that's being mapped by an institution. So I think when you have an interview, you allow for that sort of genuine approach and you allow for your interviewee to actually elaborate where they're coming from and find the words with you. Because I think when they write, it's again definitive, but when they think about it, it helps to elaborate the underneath relationships of where their positions are at, in what context are they speaking, who is in the hierarchy of or what's their relationship with this other particular hub, so on and so forth. But when you have this script, you as an interviewee doing it and questioning, when to gauge the amount of time you promised and the kind of data you need with them, because it's a bit of entertaining, but at the same time investigating.
Okay,
For
that's
sure.
a very nice way to frame it.
I think it's also about the fact that we are building up the definition of what this means, because it's not something clear, and it's important to understand what their definitions. For example, one of the interesting ones is like, what is your current business model? None of them have a proper business model, really. What is a business model within like an art and cultural collective? It's not something that we should be really, we should have a clear definition of in the first place. So it's more like kind of disrupting the current idea of what these things are, and also seeing where are they coming from.
Because,
for example, value, we often align it with monetary, right? But for most of these kind of art and cultural work, it definitely is not.
They can get offended.
Ali.
No,
exactly.
Because when I did the toolkit and we talked about the business model as a way to sort of describe how we work in Creative Hubs, they were like, why must we sort of think about financial gains or capitalistic sort of ideology in building the hub, as opposed to seeing it as a aspect of sustainability. So it's really like trying to build that language with them and not piss them off or like turn them off. But still getting, because you still need to talk about money.
Exactly.
Okay, great. No, thank you for sharing that. Now we have an idea of some of the challenges you face and the solutions that you've been exploring. Let's discuss a bit about what do you think, and you've also heard from different course mates on how they've overcome some of these challenges. What do you think, given our situation, that you're able to do in the next 2 months? Given that, yes, we definitely cannot access the physical stuff. So what would make our next 2 months productive? Yusra, you want to go on? Let's go on now. So Ali, Clarissa, or what would be productive for you, or what do you think?
I think just writing, and really.
Yeah, I think for you and Clarissa is the writing part, right?
Yeah, because it's not as clean cut as math. Well, mathematics, where 1 + 1 is 2. It's you have to build that string that is you as the researcher also. And that, I mean, I'm facing that issue because it's quite a personal position, trying to put yourself in and trying to find the right words. So if you already do it earlier, I think if you go to like some writing workshop from Cindana, maybe you are easier, you can write or something like that. You have earlier practice.
No.
Yeah.
You say?
Oh, well, I'm still, sourcing, right? So it's like keyboard, like zombie, like type the same thing at all database again and again, download, see.
Exactly.
It's like zombie. You basically zombie for like a few days, and then go and visit back. Like, is this relevant or not? Okay, out. Yes, out. Yes. So
Yeah.
I'm still at that stage. Really.
Have you been processing things that you find rather than just downloading? Because
process, of course. Like, at least that's how I know the subtopics that is related to what has been written on Bajau Mat. Not particular, just the surrounding topics, because not much has been really written. I have not found actually, except for 2 articles, or one actually, only one. And I have to request because I've only read an abstract, and the rest is just.
When you say request, what do you mean?
I found an abstract on the proceedings.
Okay.
2019, but it wasn't a full article, so I requested for, I don't know, to the authors.
How did you request? You write to them personally, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've not heard from them yet, so we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, basically that's all for now.
Okay.
Yeah. So what else? Google Scholar and all the A to Z UM database. I've done that. So I guess maybe next I might try the
Philippines?
Yeah, the repository. What do you call it? Repository. Yeah, Philippines. No, I haven't. So yeah. So a lot. Maybe I should look into UMS, University Sabah, Malaysia, or repository, and there's also Philippines. Yeah, because the 2 of them write a lot on Sama Bajau.
Okay, great.
And I find like random stuff from University of Hawaii. I don't know. Somehow there's a lot on.
There's a lot of stuff out there, and they're random. The thing is, they're all scattered all over the place, right?
Yeah.
But you are also collecting examples of objects in digital archives of.
So far it's just Elans.
Okay, so where else?
Elans, where Elans would be just all the galleries,
So where would you be able to find, Bajau Mat?
The original Bajau Mat.
Yeah, earlier exampple of
I did ask the weavers the other day. They said they don't know. They don't even know it. Ilan said in one of the museums in Sabah, they do display in Sempurna. I can't remember what's the name, somewhere.
So earlier examples, you need to look at ethnographic museums, right?
Yeah. Which museum was it?
So like K. Brownlee, for example, in
what road? Taylor Road.
something like this. I think there's already Bajau stuff. You know, the Berlin one is so you also have to map out, other than just the books and articles, you have to map out where objects are, right? Where the things are located, and actually have an inventory of these things. So that's easy for you to retrieve that information and you don't forget, because ultimately when you're working on even an MA thesis, I think the information will overwhelm us.
Okay.
So you could try exploring some of these ethnographic museums, see the Smithsonian, for example, the Ethnological Museum in Berlin, even some of those remote ones like Swedish, somehow they have all these materials there for some reason, and then you'll discover a whole new different sort of like history and connection of like, you know, Northern Europe to this part of the world. But you'll be surprised at how much of all these things are out there and nested in different repositories. And until you do the kind of like, you know, digging, then it won't show up on Google, fortunately. I think people are developing like a system to search, but you know, that's still, you know, it takes a while for the machine to learn how to.
Sorry, Yusra, you're talking about the Bajau Laut map, as in where they live, is it?
Met.
Oh, map. Oh,
Tika.
Tika. I thought like map or like where's, okay, sorry.
Tika.
So some of the older ethnological museums,
Ethnographic museum.
and you have to figure out the terminology. Like some use ethnology, some use anthropology, some use various things, right? And then go and do the search.
Yeah, I asked the kakak, like, do they know like if their mats are displayed in anywhere?
But the kakaks will be recent, so a lot of these like whole mats that are from a much earlier period, maybe in the early 20th century. So it's only from this, if you want to, you know, look at ancestral kind of like memory practice, I imagine comparative understanding of like changes to iconography or changes to, you know, technology or weaving. It's a crucial thing to at least discuss, right, in your work. So you might have to then look at also earlier stuff.
Oh, excellent.
So like, for example, I think this one, World Tutoran, has a lot of stuff too. So yeah, try to build up this at least repository in your head as well, even though you might not use them, so that you know how to position the contemporary production of maths in relation to this larger, visual vocabulary.
Okay.
Sharon, do you have anything to add? Or do you think, well, I mean, I know that you're not at that stage where you need to, you know, figure out a topic yet, but, you know, over the next 2 months, do you have any ambition or plan, or see yourself, you know, improving on certain?
I think what really inspired me was Ali's mind map. I think that's a great way, at least in this exploration state, especially in the exploration state, to just have a framework of where ideas are and how they relate. Then that would, I think, greatly help me in trying to identify what are the specific areas that I can work on. So thanks, Ali, for sharing that. Actually, a note on the Bajau mat. Actually, I found a few, but this is not specifically North Bornean Sama Bajau mats, but more on Tawi and the Mindanao side. And I find that a lot of papers that are written in Philippines, Bajau is normally spelled as Badjao, Badjao. So maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that.
Not really Bajau. I think the term that they use there is Samal.
Yeah, Samar, and then Bajau with a W.
when it met, it's known as Pepo.
Yeah. So yeah, putting different names in all these like archives is like, yeah, like I say, super tedious. But yeah, I don't know, maybe that.
So it's what I used to do is I build up I'll just have a piece of paper and I build up a lexicon list of the permutations, right? And then run through searches systematically. That's one tedious way of, at least making sure that you cover your tracks and see, what the alteration of the spelling might yield. So Ellie, do you want to add to that?
Thank you so much for the suggestion on the TREE website, National Library Digital Gems. I will definitely I will definitely start now and also build up my chart. Yeah, so hopefully I will have more things to update next time.
Okay.
Thank you,
I
everyone.
think one thing you might want to consider is, has there been a catalog raisonné of Khalil Ibrahim's work? And if not, I wonder if you're in a good position to be the one building it up. Also, this is like, the most boring, conventional, and outdated art historical skill to have, but it's one of the most useful. And you're building up something that is solid. And I'm only saying this is because you are based in auction houses with access to this data. So think like you might want to read up on what the catalog raisonné is, and I'm sure you know what it is, and see if you are, this might be something that you want to work towards. Also, I don't know, and it might help you with your work as well. I'm just thinking also in terms of what it might benefit your career in the future. So yeah, have a think. Who?
Next month and 2 months, I think I need to make everything ready for proposal defense. Now I'm doing this literature review in proposal. Need to do.
Okay. So you're doing your literature review for your proposal defense now. Okay. Okay. All right. So, I mean, I don't know, did you feel like our discussion today was helpful, or was it sort of all over the place? Or, I mean, I'm in two minds about it. I can't quite decide. So maybe, what do you think? I feel like there were parts that worked, but other parts then maybe didn't really quite answer some of the question. Or maybe we need a different way of sharing. What are your thoughts? Or is it we're addressing too many different things, and that we should more specifically look at specific methodologies? What would be most helpful for you if we were to run another session in 3 weeks' time? Should we, what should we address? Do we look at
I think
methodologies or what?
specific methodologies would be good. Like, how would you even begin? I mean, much like maybe what was the thing that you do, the millennial research?
Or the resource guide.
The resource one? That might be helpful for some of the people here.
So historical material, or like, because like I imagine, because I feel like just now as we were discussing, it also felt like, okay, there were some of we could really sort of deep dive into historical
Exactly
topics, and then we can really also look at interview as methodology, and both are so
distinct.
Rich. Yeah. Or even participant observation.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think like to specify certain areas of research or methodologies that you would think that would help our topics, but also to go into kind of like writing skills and like how to frame that,
Okay.
right? Like
Can
so
you be more specific?
so one way is to kind of think about how to analyze certain types of data, like might be
Okay,
helpful.
what is helpful for you? What would you like to learn? What kind of data would you like to learn how to analyze?
For me, most of like my data is interview and also quite written sort of for primary collection work. So how do you kind of transfer that into, I guess, like the process that Ali is going through, into something more analytical might be also helpful. I mean, that's quite similar to even like thinking about extracting ideas from secondary sources, right? Like taking it and then creating an argument. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah,
I think I agree with you, Clarissa. I think it'll be useful for me at least to, because what I'm doing right now is kind of finding ways of writing your writer's voice. I think is the best way to capture it, of how the researcher translates the data into literature, into a narrative, and at the same time provides their finding or states their finding clearly. I think now with the
what
current,
are the challenges that you are facing? Maybe to
I think
yeah.
it's a bit of the poetics of my writing, but at the same time, finding the tone.
What do you mean by poetics?
So when you arrange chapter 2 and the kind of themes that you have framed already, all right, how do you sort of begin the argument and then analyze the particular literature around it? How would you sort of write it? I think clearer examples would help me sort of get the note for it. I don't know how to say it.
So
Is it like the writing style or like what kind of?
Writing style, I think. Writing style.
is it style or structure?
It's a bit of both, because there's a style in doing that structure, or there is that structure that's being stylized. I think I need to call that out. I can't call it out with different papers. So you have like a sort of
your anxiety is it because you are not you feel like you're not concise enough, or it's more like you don't even know how to structure I'll give form to an idea?
I know how to be concise. I'm just scared it's too short. So I want to like also find out how, once you hit each note that you need to, how do you paint the extra analysis that you have, or yeah, I mean, it's also just listening to for me, I'm a very audible person. From listening, I register ideas better and frame ideas better. So to write, it's quite, to find that is reading a lot lah.
I think what Ali is also trying to articulate is the fact that we don't use writing as often to describe these phenomena and these analysis, or even create arguments. So, and also we don't read theses on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So whether we're hitting the right benchmark, or whether we're articulating a certain argument in this way, is that the right way to do it? How do we flesh out an idea more? If we say flesh out, what does that mean? Things like that.
Or maybe like Simon, if you have like a sort of specific thesis you felt like the researcher does very well with their qualitative work that we could refer to or maybe look at and discuss, like what we did in your visual arts class.
Okay.
Visual history class, yeah.
Instead of paintings, we look at written.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
You look at what written word. Okay, let's say, how do you flesh out ideas more? Take examples, concrete ones. Okay, all right. I'll comb through and then find some examples related to also our area so that it's relatable. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. It's great. Thank you. That's very helpful. At least, yeah, that's something we can really explore in the next session. Anything to add?
No, I think that other than that, it's quite nice how you moderate everybody to have sort of time to kind of share where they're at. I think if we were to have examples or specific examples, then we can kind of not read together, but discuss together and then relate from where we are at.
Okay. So maybe also like we'll try to open up for opportunity for everyone to bring in examples as well. For our next session when we look at some of these, different styles and structures of, narrating your ideas. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Clarissa, you have anything else to add, or is that it?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. Sharon?
For me, I see this session as we talked about like some hard skills in research and some soft skills in research. If you were to organize future ones, what I would love to deeper is probably the usage of technology, like the Airtables application that Clarissa shared. How do we use those applications to help in data management? Because I saw like how she was able to break down even this individual interviews into he's talking about background now. Okay, in this part he's talking about whatever, and in this part he's talking about whatever. I think not only that gave me an idea that not only you can use that for analyzing interviews, but also probably to organize the papers and ideas that we have that we got from papers. And I think that would help me greatly to just have a clearer sense
I've been a converted spreadsheet user.
So Nancy, just for clarification, so the link to the spreadsheet that I'll be sharing.
Just watch this link.
Okay.
It's a lecture workshop on how to use spreadsheet and what it can do for humanities research. And I find this very helpful for me. Of course, understandably, it's not for everyone. I feel like unless you're really prepared to work with spreadsheets, you won't find this useful. But when I was ready, it was particularly helpful. But yeah, we can definitely sort of like do that. So usage of technology. What kind of technology you want to learn primarily? There's so many different types of digital.
That discussion that we had, Simon, where you shared me the online thematic analysis generator of sorts.
Oh, you mean like text mining?
Text mining, that other ways of mapping the data that you have. If you're stuck, kind of examples of technology would be useful too, I think. Yeah. Okay. If you have more of that examples, yeah, because I think the author and transcribing and everything is quite straightforward, but when you're analyzing also, maybe that's a phase where we can see yeah, with this, if there's because I remember all you have to do was just put all your transcription, and then next thing you know, they show you all the keywords, the amount of times it's been repeated, and that felt very useful to see.
Those kind of stuff, unless you're dealing with thousands of books, what makes you not trust your intuitive capacity to read 10 books or extract information from 4 interviews, because this is not a big pool of data, right? I mean, that type of technology is used when you have, I don't know, thousands of books that you want to crunch.
Surveys, yeah.
It's a volume thing. So, are you interested in that type of research? Is that why you want to explore text mining?
I think so, because it does show a pattern, and I think it helps to. I mean, of course, it's used for mass data, but just for a little pool of data, I think it's also quite useful for us to jump off from, because a lot of sorting out, or I realized in terms of Obsidian and all this organizing apps is very useful to organize, but you know, you are still doing the analysis. You are still. So I'm wondering if there's that like sort of other ways of analyzing methods.
So maybe what we can do. I mean, these are not things that I'm familiar with as well.
I
know parts of it, but I don't know the whole thing. So what we can do is, if we are interested in like usages of technology, is we can run it as like 2 or 3 day workshops where we work through it together.
No, I think just an introduction for now, because I feel like the discussion within this particular class is very focused on, looking at research as a whole and making that thesis happen. I think this technology is an aspect. Like if you don't want to go into it, also can also.
No. What I'm saying is that how we can run this is that, because I'm saying that I'm not like an expert in any of these technologies. And I'm learning on the go as well. So what we can do is to, carve out 2 to 3 days where we work through this technology together as a class. We sit down, we, come up with, prepare certain data sets, and then we, run through these, engines or platforms, and then figure out what we get out of it, and look at and try to figure out how to analyze it. So that's a way that we're all learning, these things together. Because I can, my understanding of network analysis is like, okay, it's abstract. I can tell you the difference between an edge and a node, but beyond that, how do you sort of really make it, get more out of like creating a network in an analytical map? I don't know how to. I don't know much else, but I'm willing to explore.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be fun. That'll be a fun class. I mean, we can come in with our own sort of research papers. Maybe you can just use that as a bank of text to kind of break down. But just a tutorial like that would be interesting.
Yeah, and then we can figure this out together. But you need to maybe apportion like 1 or 2 days where we can work through certain things so that we can see results, right? Okay. We can do that definitely. And anything else you want to add, Sharon? Okay, Ellie?
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Was that with Tableau? Okay. Who?
I don't have anything to add. I agree with Ari and Carissa. Some methodologies would be useful for our research.
They mentioned specifically technological methodologies. Is that what you're interested in as well?
Yeah.
So what are you interested in specifically? Do you have anything in mind? Or?
I don't have anything now.
Okay.
But I think it would be useful. I would like to know.
Okay, all right. Okay, so it really boils down to 2 directions that we can work on. One is writing skills, and the other one is maybe workshopping use of technology in humanities research. Which one do you prefer? Which one would you prioritize? Okay, this 1 or 2, if you can sort of key in the chat box. 1 for writing, 2 for usage of technology.
Sorry, just to like quickly respond. I think it's just to make it easier. If tech is so heavy, it's also about like writing and analyzing lah. Essentially, the second part. Yeah.
No, I mean we got to prioritize, right?
Okay, fine.
Don't mix the 2, Ali.
You vote like Malaysia.
No, what do you want to prioritize? We will cover both eventually. It's just that what you want to prioritize. Just key in your 1 or 2. Okay, Clarissa, 1.
I follow majority.
Okay, 1.
Writing, it seems. Okay.
Let's do that. Sharon, you want 2? Okay. All right. So let's do writing first, and we'll try to, and we'll also give me a bit more time to figure out how to run a workshop as well. Okay. And we can do that over the summer months.
Summer.
I mean, not that we really have a summer month.
Okay.
Whatever that means. At least it's a long break. Or we can go and pursue our other curiosities. Of months, yes. Okay, thank you everyone. So I'm gonna stop the recording already.